So I noticed just the other day you were banned from Twitter. Now, I'm somebody, nobody can argue against my lefty credentials. Everybody knows I'm a man of the left. Having said that, my solution on this issue of social media censorship has always been, look, we need to expand First Amendment protections. And the way you do that is to regulate these big social media companies like their public utilities. So if you do that, then basically you're saying this is the new public square and people can speak their mind here. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, you can't, dox people or do direct threats of violence or anything that's actually illegal will remain illegal. But outside of that, you can't censor people just based on political opinion. So, I definitely wouldn't have banned you, suspended you, etc. But I do have a question about that specific tweet that did get you in trouble because, you said something to the effect of,
well, I don't know if it got me in trouble. I don't think I'm in trouble. Twitter banned me, but I don't consider that trouble.
That's fair enough. Fair point. But you said something to the effect of, remember when pride was a sin and the criminal physician.
And Ellen Page just had her breasts cut off by a criminal physician.
Exactly. So my question is the physician really criminal? If you agree that adults can decide to transition, then why would the physician be criminal? Don't adults have that right if they want to transition?
Not everything legal isn't criminal.
So it took him that literally 10 seconds of silence to come up with that. Let's go back.
The physician really criminal? If you agree that adults can decide to transition, then why would the physician be criminal? Don't adults have that right if they want to transition?
Not everything legal isn't criminal.
Not everything legal isn't criminal.
The one thing I wanted to just jump in and ask and announce here, that the hill that Jordan Peterson literally got famous for dying on is that words have meaning. You can't just make up what a word means. Yeah, criminal means against the law, Jordan Peterson. Let me just Google the definition really quickly, just so we have it, of the word criminal. Okay? It means a person who has committed a crime, relating to crime. What does crime mean? Crime, definition. An action or omission that constitutes an offense that may be prosecuted by the state and is punishable by law. Fuck you, Jordan Peterson. You just backed yourself into a corner with your own brain rot.
Yeah, also, isn't that literally the definition of authoritarianism, just based on your petty personal whims, deciding what is criminal, what is legal, what is not legal? That's just you taking your ideology and enforcing it on everyone else. I thought you were about personal freedom. I thought the right wing, that was one of their main tenets and values, was personal freedom. But here you are saying, this disturbs me, this makes me uncomfortable, therefore it should be criminal. Okay, well, to be fair, let's give him some more time to explain himself. But I do think that's an insane answer.
And do they have that right? See, I would have left Ellen Page alone if she hadn't been parading her new abs in a fashion magazine. How many kids do you think she can convince to convert? 1?
Yeah.
1,000? No, not.
No,
really?
I want to respond to that. I think that with the trans community, it's very similar to the gay community, where back when that first became a big issue, people thought, oh, if we talk about it, if it's in magazines or whatever, we're promoting kids to go down that path. But really what happened is people are who they are. And if they're gay, they just decided to be yeah, I'm gay. And they were just more open and honest with themselves. So I don't think you're promoting people to do that.
No,
you're
that's
just
not
saying,
what happened.
If you are that.
So here we find out that not only is Jordan Peterson transphobic, but he's also incredibly homophobic. He basically just said that no, people aren't who they are. They're not gay. They're not trans. They're all just convinced. It's all just society. It's all just these crazy fucking liberals convincing people that are otherwise just, all straight and cis to become gay and to become trans. Because, yeah, so many cis people that I know are just, they have this great urge to go have their fucking genitals, removed and have a sex change. Talk to any actual fucking cis person and they would never in a million goddamn years do that. Obviously, there are edge cases, but when it comes down to the majority of cis people, you're not going to find anyone that has any desire whatsoever to get a sex change surgery. This is a intensive surgery. It takes a long time to recover from. This is something that people do after they've literally seriously made up their mind after probably years and years. Like, this isn't just some sort of fucking impulse decision people make. It's an incredibly serious a personal life decision that you make. It's not something that, oh, I looked in a magazine cover and I saw Elliot Page's abs, so now I'm going to go get a sex change surgery. You are a fucking dunce if you think that's how it works. And obviously the same goes with straight people and gay people. Straight people like myself, I'm not going to become fucking convinced to go start sucking dick because I see representation of gay people in magazines or movies or something. You know, I know what I like. I know what my preferences are, just like how gay people aren't going to become, convinced to be straight with conversion therapy or whatever, which, by the way, Jordan Peterson was also defending recently.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, that's a lie, though. I remember after Gavin watched Brokeback Mountain, he went on a fucking tear. I think you would not believe. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, obviously, this is such bullshit, but this is what we're always arguing, right? Like, he's giving away the game right here. Again, Jordan Peterson always tries to die on the hill that like language is so important and language matters. But we just literally gave it away that because he didn't want to be backed into a corner where he was massively hypocritical. He just reinvented the word criminal, right? He gave it his own meaning that, was exactly what he felt fit his own narrative. Go fucking figure that's what he continues to rail against and say that he's like dying against and crusading, and all he really cares about is, linguistics and fucking freedom of speech and all of that. And for him to just, basically come out with it and connect the dots that Gavin and I have always been laying out. We're like, first it's trans community because they're the most vulnerable, but then the right wing just comes back and says, well, we actually hate the entire LGBTQ community. We always have. It became unpolitically salient for a while, but now we've made our ground back. And people like Jordan Peterson, we gays wish to prosecute this crime of fashion. Good, you should. I would fucking show up as a juror in there. Anyway, I think that he's giving away his game completely, and the game of the entire right wing, which is to essentially expand their persecution from specifically targeting trans individuals like Elliot Page because they are more they're like in more of a minority, right? Then they'll start to continue to go after with their groomer rhetoric and all these other things like actual just regular gay people and say that they were only like conditioned to be gay because of the media, just like trans people were conditioned to transition because of the media. And the last thing I'll add was, if anybody doesn't understand and none of us can understand if we're just regular fucking people or cis people that have never fucking had to go through something like this, right? Like, the fucking emotional turmoil, the physical pain and toll that you have to go through to transition. You guys should really watch ContraPoint's video about it, because as somebody who had no idea about a lot of that, when I watched that for the first time, it really opened up my eyes to the extent of what, you really go through. And I think that'll shore up a lot of people's like, oh, people just do this on a whim for fun, kind of like, bullshit.
And it's
Completely
okay.
wrong.
Okay. Well,
You're utterly
I'm
wrong.
listening.
There's
I'm
nothing
listening.
about that's right.
So explain.
Well,
I'm
there's been
listening.
an absolute look. One of the reasons that I opposed Bill C-16 in Canada to begin with, this pronoun compelled speech bill, was because I knew perfectly well what was going to happen when we introduced confusion about gender identity into the public sphere.
Wait, what? I thought that was about free speech. What did you just fucking say?
Pronoun. One of the reasons that I opposed Bill C-16 in Canada to begin with, this pronoun compelled speech bill, was because I knew perfectly well what was going to happen when we introduced confusion about gender identity into the public sphere.
What the fuck, bro? I watched a lot of YouTube back in the 2015, 2016 era, and I remember all these motherfuckers praising Jordan Peterson for this shit, saying, oh, he's the only one, taking a stand for freedom of speech. This is about freedom of speech. It's not about fucking gender ideology. It's not about being a bigot or a transphobe. It's about freedom of speech. How dare they mandate that us professors have to say this or that? How dare they word police us? This is going to get people fired for refusing to say Z and Zer and all this crazy bullshit. And now here he is, just a few years later, admitting that no, it wasn't about fucking freedom of speech. It was not about that bullshit at all. It was about his ideology and preventing what he considers to be dangerous changes in the way people think about gender, which, by the way, people have always had a, flexible interpretation of gender all throughout human history. Trans people have always fucking existed all throughout human history. There were literally like fucking kings in England and France and shit like that were trans.
Or ancient Thai culture.
ancient Thai culture, Native American culture, where they literally recognize multiple genders. This is an extremely modern and Western concept that there's only man and woman and that there's no fluidity there. That is not something that's historically accurate whatsoever. And here again, Jordan Peterson just straight up admitting that no, it wasn't about freedom of speech. It was all about what his ideal version of gender ideology is and what he was afraid of entering the mainstream discourse. So at least thanks for admitting that, you fucking charlatan.
Yep. Quiet part out loud. That's what, we've been waiting for.
Now, the argument was that if we left people with gender dysphoria alone to make their own way and stop torturing them, that we would decrease the mental health load on those individuals.
Absolutely.
And my analysis as a clinician was that for every one person of that sort that we hypothetically save, we doom 1,000 more as a consequence of confusion and social contagion.
That is not
I knew the literature.
I just want to say that he'll be like, in my work as a doctor, and then he'll make up some numbers. That's the kind of scientist he is. In my work as a doctor, okay, 1 in 1,000. Like he pulled that out of his ass. That's not a fucking analysis.
On psychogenic epidemics. They used to call that mass hysteria, and it's a literature that goes back about 300 years. And often when you introduce social confusion, you can produce a psychogenic epidemic, especially generally it's adolescent females who are most susceptible to it. So I thought, oh, well, what's going to happen is we'll produce a psychogenic epidemic of gender dysphoria among adolescent females. And that is exactly.
Again, he's trying to compare the condition of being a trans person to like hysteria, which was this like social contagion, as he calls it, that basically existed in like the 19th century. But in reality, as I just mentioned, being trans has been an observable historical phenomenon which has literally existed for as long as human beings have, just like homosexuality. There's nothing new about this. There's nothing fleeting about it, like a social contagion. It's literally an observable and reality-based fact of human existence that has always been with us. Again, look at the Native American cultures and the way that they understood gender. It's far different than this black and white binary presented to you by people like Jordan Peterson. So this is absolutely just 100% false. Trans people and gender fluidity has been a concept that has been around for a very long time.
What's happened. And it isn't the fact that we've freed up people who are in doubt about their identity to be who they are. That may have happened in a tiny minority of cases. It's absolutely and definitely the case that we've doomed thousands of kids to brutal, mutilating surgery and premature sterility. And we've done that on the altar of our hypothetical moral virtue and compassion. Look, I read a corporate analysis of the trans surgery industry last week. Growth rate projection for you lefty types and your anti-corporatism. Growth rate projection, 15% per year. Invest now. A $350 million business as of 2022, projected to expand to $750 million by 2027. No moral hazard there? There's plenty of moral hazard there. And that surgery is absolutely brutal.
Oh, it's absolutely brutal. Yeah, every fucking surgery is absolutely brutal, you dunce. That's like, oh my God, so fucking dumb. Where do we even start with this dumbass talking point? Gender, body dysphoria, whatever you want to call it, is an actual medical condition. Just like any other medical condition, the answer to which is to require some sort of medical procedure. In this case, surgery. If you have a fucking, issue with your heart, you have to have heart surgery, then that's the, procedure you do to handle that. In the same way, if you are a trans person, you have body or gender dysphoria, you seek gender affirming surgery. It's literally just a medical answer to a medical problem. I truly do not understand what is so hard to understand about this, but the fact that there's now more opportunities for trans people to receive that gender affirming surgery is not a moral hazard. If anything, denying them the ability to have gender affirming surgery, that is a moral hazard. That increases suicides, that increases all kinds of the societal ills associated with trans people, which is why then they'll turn around and say, well, trans people commit suicide at higher rates, therefore they're obviously mentally ill. Well, maybe if you gave them the affirming surgery that they obviously so desire, then that wouldn't be the fucking case, but you're against that too, right?
Yeah, I was actually just Googling how many people get boob jobs every year, right? Because it doesn't seem like the right freaked out about cosmetic surgery, right? Donald Trump, he was all into like, cosmetically enhanced women in the 80s and all kinds of shit. It wasn't like that was a dangerous fucking criminal surgery to do when it was something that like the male gaze was satisfied by, when it was something that served this like sexual end. For a majority of men, there was absolutely no pushback, despite the fact that it's only gotten much more safer since then to have, cosmetic surgery done to you, gender affirming surgery, if you will, writ large. And there's nothing wrong with it, right? Like, I know people in my life who have had cosmetic surgery that had nothing to do with gender dysphoria. They just chose to, and they had every right to, just like every other fucking person has every right to. But the problem is there's no backlash if you get a fucking boob job or if you get a nose job or something like that, and you just keep it to yourself and you never say anything to anybody about it. It's this fact that they have this visceral hatred towards the trans community that makes them want to actually criminalize the procedures that would give them the, life that they're after and their truth or whatever,
And forget boob jobs. You know what else is perfectly freaking legal to do to your body? You know, it's 100% legally permissible to do this fucking shit. And it should be. If you want to do that to your fucking face, your fucking body, have at it, bro. There's literally nothing wrong with that. It's your body. It's your life. Why would anyone try to police that? But again, if you're okay with this and you're not trying to incite a moral panic over this, then how are you going to look at, a trans person and say that that's a fucking issue? It's absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, let's keep watching. I want to get through the rest of this clip, and we'll try not to interrupt as much. But yeah.
So what percentage of the population do you think, in your conception of how this is unfolding, what percentage of the population do you think is going to end up being trans at the end of this? Do you think like one day it's going to be like 70% of the country is trans?
We know already that about 1 in 5 adolescents now identifies, to use that hated word, identifies as part of the hypothetical LGBTQ plus community. So it's 1 in 5. I don't know what the upper limit is. There's a consulting group in the UK now that's claiming there's 150 different genders. There's actually, I suppose, 7 billion different genders if you want to get technical about it, because everybody's temperament differs. But I don't know what the upper limit is. And I have no idea what the upper limit is for this surgical intervention. We'll see. But I don't find it, I don't find it the least bit acceptable. And if you think that your compassion is demanding that you extend your pity to the LGBTQ plus community at the cost of sterilizing children, you should think again. You're on the wrong side of this, and not in a trivial way.
I would appreciate if you don't ascribe beliefs to me that I don't have. Remember, my original question was
you said earlier in this question that,
I said
that
Elliot Page is an adult, and so do you think that he has the right to transition?
But
that was the original question.
You made some comments after that. Yeah, but as a star and a public figure and a model for emulation, she also has the responsibility not to entice confused adolescents into a catastrophic decision before they have the maturity to make that decision.
The children. We must think of the children. That's why I continue to dead name and misgender an adult man who has decided to become Elliot Page. That's why I continually, exude this disgusting bigotry, because I care about the children. Yeah, bull fucking shit. They always use the goddamn kids as an excuse. Same thing with the homophobia. Oh, the groomers. They're going to groom your fucking kids. All gay people are pedophiles. Why don't you think of the kids? Meanwhile, 99.9% of fucking pedophiles are straight men. You fucking know that shit. This is so fucking disgusting.
Also, I just want to add, there's no fucking contract between Elliot Page and the fucking public that says they have to behave some way because their job is making believe for a living in front of a fucking camera, right? You don't have any fucking responsibility to anybody just because of what you fucking do for work. Elliot Page is a fucking actor. They act. That doesn't mean it's their responsibility to fucking, have anything to do with what your children at all. They're living their fucking life. And for somebody that always wants to complain and piss and moan about how, the left is trying to conduct how, like, we parent our children, like, parent your own fucking kids. It's not Elliot Page's responsibility to even think about your fucking children for a second. He's just living his life.
Yeah, exactly. And again, if you really cared so much about the children, if that's what this is always about, because that's how it always starts. Again, we don't care about, trans people. We're supportive of everyone. You can do whatever you want. I don't care. We're actually concerned about the kids. Well, in that case, then why are you insisting on being so goddamn bigoted and so goddamn fucking transphobic in your insistence to dead name and misgender adult trans people? This has nothing to do with fucking kids. Stop just, bringing that up because you think it wins you the art. It doesn't. You're literally just being transphobic.
Yep.
Just have to say, Jordan, I think it's a little bit of a moral panic. I just don't see some sort of, frenzy of
what would
people
you
running
consider-
to become trans.
First of all, that's a hell of a way to put it.
What?
Why don't
is
you
that-
take a look at the increases in surgical interventions and see what you think? I mean, how many do you think is
Well,
too many? How
Again,
many? Look, if we're talking about
I'll answer your
suffering-
question. The argument is it used to be very repressed because that's very outside of the tradition and the norm and the standard. And that now we
What
sort of
used
let
to
the
be-
boot off
what
the neck
used
a
to
little
be
bit.
suppressed? What used to be suppressed?
The
Exactly.
entire LGBTQ community. I mean, it was very recently we
Okay,
even
first
got
of
gay
all, they're
marriage
not
in the
a co-
United States.
First of all, they're not a community.
Well, you
What
understand
is
the point
this
I'm making.
community?
You literally use that term yourself, by the way. If you go back literally like less than 5 minutes in this interview, he says the LGBT community. But now he wants to get all hung up on the semantics because he has nothing else.
No, actually, neither I understand it nor you, and that's why we're delving into it. First of all, they're not a community. That's just a catchphrase. It's a buzzword. And I'll tell you something else, that almost all the kids who are undergoing surgical intervention, the clinical literature is absolutely clear on this. 80% of kids with gender dysphoria identify as homosexual when they mature. 80%. And that means the vast
You
majority.
know that over 90% of children that receive trans affirming medical attention can stay trans. Like, it's not like, oh, once they become adults, oops, I fucked up and I want to go back. No, over 90 fucking percent. So save me your bullshit statistics.
I also just want to point out how deeply unlikable this man is. Just engaging with him was to be like fucking listening. Like, I mean, Kyle almost like puts his hand in his mouth a few times because he keeps interrupting him and talking over him like a real piece of shit. It would fucking aggravate the hell out of me.
Yeah, he just comes off as so fucking bitter too. Like, Jesus Christ.
Of people who are being converted surgically are gay. Now, how is that an advantage to the gay community precisely?
No, see, I'm not taking a position in any way, shape, or form on the kids because I don't know the
But you
first thing
should.
about this to comment on the kids. Well, but see, that's why we're having this conversation though, is because my original question was
They're
about
kids.
the adults and what your take is on the adults.
Hmm.
And it sounds to me like, let me ask you a question. Would you ban transition surgery for adults?
I don't know.
Really?
That means yes, by the way.
Yeah, really.
That means yes, by the way. Again, they claim to care about the kids. They claim to clutch their pearls and pretend, oh, don't you care about the fucking kids? In reality, they are the petty authoritarians we suspected all goddamn along. If this man had any power, God forbid he ever fucking does, he would 100% try to criminalize any transitioning, any trans affirming, gender affirming surgery because it doesn't fit with his ideology. And he's not in favor of personal freedom. He doesn't give a shit about personal freedom. He's a theocrat that wants to enforce his way of life and his antiquated, regressive ideology onto your life and onto your body. You should be able to do whatever the fuck you want with your body. It's not anyone else's business. And the right wing, who famously claims to care so much about personal freedom and, leaving it up to the parents to decide what they do with their kids, as soon as he's questioned on this, immediately admits, I don't know, maybe I would ban it. Maybe it should be criminalized. Yeah, personal freedom, my fucking ass.
Well, that's the bait and switch of the right? I mean, they always frame everything free speech issue, freedom, this issue, X, Y, and Z issue. And then, the bait and switch is that it's our freedom to impose our beliefs on you.
We're paying a big price for it. And I think that it was an act of stunning hubris to conduct the first trans surgery procedure. And it's not obvious to me at all that it's been a net social good. And
But
so,
aren't there some people that are obviously trans who were born in one body, they feel like they're in the other body, and when they're an adult, they can make the decision? And then even from just a freedom and liberty perspective, shouldn't they have that right? Even if they do it and then they regret it, shouldn't they have the right to try it?
It's a good question. I mean, it's a tricky one, right? Because there's all sorts of surgical enhancement procedures that are it's not obviously appropriate to make them illegal. And I don't know exactly where the cutoff line is, so to speak. And that's partly why we're having a public discussion about it. But this entire argument in many ways is stated so idiotically that it almost defies description. I mean, what do you mean feel like you're in the wrong body?
Well,
What kind of measurement is that? No, hang on a sec.
I was going to
There are
answer.
rules for these sorts of diagnostic decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The rule is that you have to make a valid and reliable diagnosis. That's if you're diagnosing depression or anxiety or
One
obsessive
second.
compulsive
I won't take too long.
cancer or anything.
I just want to add that none of his statistics are at all like shored up, and yet he wants to talk about how Kyle better make his analysis like a fucking goddamn PhD candidate.
Anything like that. There are standards that you have to abide by in order to make a diagnosis, in order to fulfill the obligations of your professional college. If someone comes to you and says, I feel like I have lung cancer, that is not sufficient grounds upon which to formulate a diagnosis, much less proceed to surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, what do you mean by feel? What is that? Is that an emotion? Is it a motivation? Is it a philosophical conclusion? What is it?
Let me explain.
feeling.
Let me explain to you.
Also, I just wanted to break in here and say, you know, if no one was trans, like if there was like not an actual observable phenomena of a trans population, you know, and we just lived in a society where that wasn't a thing, and then just some random person out of nowhere for the first time ever is like, you know what, I feel like a woman, you know, let's do a sex change. I would still support it because, again, I believe in personal freedom and bodily autonomy and medical autonomy. But I would understand more what Jordan Peterson is getting at here if that was the case, you know, kind of like with the trans racialism stuff, you know, like there's not really a large community of people that feel that way. It's more like one-off cases of, you know, people. And even with that, it's like, you know, it's weird. I don't like it, but, you know, do what you want with your body. Again, if you want to fucking dye your skin, it's not my goddamn place to tell you not to. But again, there is an observable community of trans people that identify this way, that experience this condition, and it is a medical condition. Body or gender dysphoria is an actual thing. He's just pretending like these people are making it up, but that is an actual observable medical condition, which definitely exists in a significant portion of the population. And it's not just now, as I've said 100 times now, it has existed all throughout human history. This is nothing new. So he's literally strawmanning this and acting like, oh, well, these crazy people just, you know, they wake up one morning and they're like, I want a vagina or I want a penis. It's not how it fucking works. Trans people know that they have been in the wrong body their entire life. They feel out of place with their, you know, biologically assigned gender. And that's why they're taking steps in their lives to rectify that. Because, again, it's a medical condition that actually does have a medical solution. It's not rocket science. And, again, this is nothing new either.
Yep.
What I mean. Let me explain to you what I mean. So I've been doing my show for about a decade. And about 2 or 3 years into doing my show, there were, you know, some stories here and there that I covered about the trans issue. Somebody who is trans reached out to me and explained to me in a very straightforward way, yeah, look, I was born biologically female. I feel like I'm biologically male. My reality never lined up. Well, I'm just explaining what they said, and then you can respond however you'd like to respond. And they told me as soon as I got the surgery, changed the way I dressed, changed the way I appeared, I felt phenomenally better. And so that's why, at least for me, this was the answer. Now, I think it would be incredibly arrogant for me to say back to that person, no, you shouldn't do that, or I know better than you do for yourself. And that's not to say that every time somebody does this, it works out well, of course, because everybody's an individual. But in some instances, that's the answer. So, you know, me as a simple outsider, I just look at it and say, hey, whatever floats your boat, and if it works, it works.
Look, most of the time, my attitude is you can go to hell in handbasket any way you choose if you're an adult. Now, this problem is complicated and compounded by the fact of the necessity of medical involvement and the ethics on the medical front. So when you asked me about how that should be regulated, my answer was I'm not exactly sure about that.
Yeah,
although it isn't obvious to me that it's obvious to me that the trans surgery enterprise has gone way too far.
Now he's concerned about corporate group.
And I'm certain that it's harmed exponentially more people than it's helped.
You could say that about so many industries. He's concerned about how many people it's hurt versus how many it's helped. You could say that about so many goddamn industries. You could say that about literally most industries. Probably.
Every single one.
Yeah, but if you believe in personal freedom, sometimes you have to weigh those risks. Like, yeah, if you want to go eat cheeseburgers and drink soda and smoke cigarettes, is that necessarily the best thing for you? No, obviously not. Do you have the right to do it? Of course. And again, spare me your fucking bullshit pearl clutching about body modification and how immoral it is when I've never heard you say a goddamn word about this. Like, this has been around for your whole life, my whole life. People can do this. I could go do this right now if I wanted, make my face look like a lizard or do something crazy like this. This is nothing new. Body mutilation or modification or whatever he wants to call it is literally nothing new. And these people are, honestly doing it probably for less valid reasons than trans people. Not that they shouldn't have the right to. Of course they should. Again, I believe in personal freedom. I believe in medical and bodily autonomy, unlike Jordan Peterson. But again, trans people are actually doing it to affirm their, gender or body dysphoria, to actually solve a medical condition from which they suffer. These people are just doing it to express themselves artistically, and you've never said a goddamn word about it. You never speak about how immoral it is, or how craven it is, or how unnatural it is, or how much money the surgeons are making off of these crazy people that want to look like a lizard man. I've never heard you harp away at that. I've never once heard it, but now all of a sudden, because you're a goddamn bigot, you're gonna pearl clutch and bring up all of these goddamn ridiculous excuses of why this should be somehow illegal or regulated, when again you have nothing to say about body modification before this. You don't give a fuck, and of course yeah, I just think it's crazy.
Yeah, and he doesn't have anything to say about any other kind of regulation, right? Like, this dude is a right winger. This dude is a capitalist. How many times have you heard Jordan Peterson talk about how capitalism is essential? Capitalism is essential for humanity and all these fucking things that he says all of the time. Well, guess what? Now he wants to pretend like, oh, the greed of these, physicians who are fucking, making money off of these surgeries. Meanwhile, this dude has made so much content critiquing people who want not to, have health care for everybody, and people who and defending the price gouging in the medical industry in America time and time again. So miss me with that. And if you want to get on a hill about what's natural and unnatural that companies are doing, you don't have anything to say about the fucking climate change catastrophe that's looming over the top of us, the fucking greed of the fucking oil and gas companies that are destroying our fucking planet. You don't have anything to say about any of that because you're not a serious person. You're a culture warrior, and you're here to target trans people because they're vulnerable, and there's an audience of people who hate them, and you hate them, and you're willing to profit off of their suffering. So that's what it is.
Yeah, and especially with that tweet too about Elliot Page and their criminal physician. Again, it just really gives the game away. At first, they pretend to care about the kids. They pretend to care about this is a moral issue. But we're not transphobic. We don't hate trans people. And then you immediately fucking go full mask off, give the game away. Nope, you're actually just an authoritarian that wants to control people's lives and controls people's bodies in accordance with whatever bullshit, regressive, antiquated ideology you have, because you're a fucking authoritarian. There's no other way to put it. That's all this is. So, that is the end of the conversation as far as I'm concerned. Again, they gave away the game. This isn't about the children. It's about imposing their ideology on everyone else's lives and everyone else's body and making it so that you can't do what the hell you want with your life and your body. And that is the right way, whether it comes to abortion, whether it comes to marriage, and whether it comes to your gender expression. That's what they care about. That's their values. And it's that simple. So any other excuse they give, whether it's religious, moral, or about the children, just know that it's all bullshit. And they're actually authoritarians that want to exert their ideology over your life and your body. They don't care about personal freedom. And it's that simple.